Hello and welcome back to another episode of What Clams. As promised in prior videos, I said I was going to get my sponsor on here. So today I am joined by my sponsor, Mac.
Hi, I'm Mac.
We've been talking about doing this for a while. Like I told you before, the podcast concept at first I was really skeptical about because it's like, am I breaking some of the principles of the fellowship? You know what I mean?
I think that's only if you're giving out other people's personal information.
Right. And see, this is what I wanted to do is like if somebody else wants to share their story on here, they can. And everybody I've interviewed for this or like had conversations with, it's been crazy for because it's to me this is part of my recovery.
Right.
Like this is like my because it's a side hobby. There's no structure to it. You know what I mean? It's just sitting down. And the thing is too, I can if there's a word that gets said in here, somebody accidentally says a last name, I crop it out. That way you can just speak from the heart, speak in your actual thought, and not have to worry about like, oh shit, I should have said that. Because I've had people on here that they like it's just that's their nature. They drop like full names. I'm like, shit, my bad. But it is what it is. But yeah, no, we've talked about doing this for a while. I think it's cool that we're finally getting to do it. I know that it's going to be a little bit harder to do things like this with you starting a new job and everything.
Yes and no. I'm just losing a couple hours a day,
Yeah,
in the drive time is all.
yeah,
So as far as, what we do together and stuff, I'm still gonna be here for that because that's a big part of my recovery too.
right.
And you've heard me say before, one day you'll have a sponsee
Yeah.
and you'll get to see the other side of the coin. And, I thought I understood it too, but you really don't until you get on the other side of that coin.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I also feel like it's the same thing as like in just recovery. Period. It's like you hear all these sayings and shit, and then once you're actually doing, because you always hear it, and you're like, whatever. Like, I was always like, shut the fuck up. Like that's just so cliche. Like, of course that's what you're gonna say. It's so typical. But then you start actually doing those things, and you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
Those were like what they said was right. Like they made sense.
One of the things that really sticks with me is, you'll hear from time to time in our fellowship and in our literature that, our fellowship and our meetings, that's really just a place to practice being a human.
Yeah.
So we don't always necessarily have to right away believe everything that we're saying and doing.
Yeah.
But through doing it and seeing the results, you start to,
Yeah.
realize the benefits of those stupid little things.
And also, I mean, because I mean, there's some people that have been like completely ostracized from society. Either they did it to themselves, like isolating, or just because of circumstances, they get a bad rap, and now people don't want to talk to them. They've been on the streets for a long time. They don't really still hiding from society at large. So when you're in those rooms, it gives you another chance to start to socialize, and it's a lot easier to do it with other people that have been through the shit you've been through.
Right. We've got a person like that in our fellowship now that people really don't want in the rooms.
Yeah.
But he is still allowed as long as he can behave appropriately.
Right, and that's the thing too. Is like maybe because at first, when you're uncomfortable, you're like, what's wrong with you? But then you start thinking like, what if it's just that they really don't understand? Because I mean, I was doing things in active addiction that I would never have done sober minded because it was just batshit crazy. Like the risks I would take, just the thought process was not there. Like any thought of like, how would this play out? Didn't give a shit. Just full bore into it.
And the self centeredness of our disease really keeps us from understanding other people's points of views, thoughts, the way they do things, why they do things. It's like, oh, we can only quantify it in why we would act like that.
Yeah.
But other people have different things going through their head. Like
Yeah.
I've had several people that I've talked with in the fellowship, they're always worried about what other people are thinking about them. I've told them all the same thing, you would be surprised how little we're thinking about you.
Yeah.
Like all this stuff that you think that we are saying, thinking, and we can care less.
Yeah. Most of the time,
we're self-centered. We're thinking about ourselves.
exactly. When they're like, oh, what are they thinking about me? They're thinking, well, what are they thinking about me? It's literally just a bunch of like, it's like a film to watch.
We're a group of narcissistic, over-obsessed people.
Yeah.
That's the root of our disease is obsessive compulsive behaviors.
Yeah.
We take something and we snowball it into a situation or a thing that it never was.
And our way of thinking a lot of times too is so I think it was my wife's book that she's reading, and in it said something like, I really want to read that book, but I'm letting her finish it. It's by Kate Quinn, called The Clinic. She wrote this book after being in treatment. She wrote it about a treatment center. I don't really have the whole background to the story. I haven't read it, but she has wrote a lot. I guess she wrote a lot of things, but she was like a heavy drinker, and she would drink and then like get ideas, and then she talks about, I guess, like have to go back through and rewrite shit. Where like the idea at the time made sense, but then you go back and read it sober and it made no sense. You take like maybe a couple of pages of what she wrote of like a bunch, and be like, fuck, that makes no sense.
When we're not clean, everything sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. So she would go. She in this one, I guess she started writing it while she was in the treatment center, and then finished it when she got out. But it's one of those things too. Is like when you start realizing the difference in yourself. That's when I think it really, for me, I think that was like the second like spiritual awakening that I had.
I don't think it's so much a difference in ourself. It's finally understanding who and what we are.
Yeah.
The drugs, no matter what they are, pot, alcohol, meth, fentanyl, whatever you're using,
Yeah.
you're using it for the same reason. The pothead is using it for the same reason as fentanyl. They're looking to escape themselves.
Yep. And I mean, fuck, dude, there's
and their
people that.
responsibilities.
Yep. I mean, fuck. I like what another person in the fellowship said when they were speaking, when they said, like, you could be in here for being on your phone too much. It doesn't matter what it is. And that's where I think a lot of people get it, like, mixed up for addicts. I don't think people realize, like, they hear that and the stigma is purely for substance. And I get why, because that's how it's been put out there. But when you start to realize, like, dude, you hear ads for stuff like, are you a sex addict? Are you a gambling addict? I've talked about that on this podcast a lot, but it really stands out because there's people that are addicted to shopping.
I don't think there's a single person in addiction that decides to get clean that doesn't understand right out of the get go that it's not the drugs. They start off, it's just, I got to get clean. If I get clean, everything's going to get better.
And then you realize.
And then you realize that even though I'm clean, I'm still an addict.
Yeah.
For me, my drug of choice went from pot and alcohol to trying to fix my marriage. I spent my first 6 months just totally obsessed with, trying to fix that. And I think it made my abstinence part of my recovery of not using drugs a lot easier.
Yeah, because your focus was on something else.
Entirely on something else. If you look at my step work, it's almost every question. It's about my wife.
Right.
And even today, my only conscious reservation, to go out and use again would be if I lost my wife.
Right.
And I'm not talking about, like her leaving. I'm talking about she like died.
Yeah. Like, well,
I had no reason to stay clean anymore.
See, that's what's crazy is because that's what, for me now, like, it's weird for my, because everybody's recovery is different. You know what I mean? For mine is like, that's where I got into the substances because I didn't know how to feel because my mom passed and then my uncle, who was like my father figure, because my dad was just never there. When I asked him, because he always smoked a lot of weed, and I was like, I'm kind of curious about trying this because in my head, I'm 14. I'm like, no one can get me in trouble. Like, no, there's no, like, I'm curious about this. If I'm curious about it now, I might as well, because that's what I was always taught. If you get curious about it, come talk to me. I'd rather do it with me than go out and fuck up, and which that's a continuous of the cycle. But I get it because in the lesser of evils, I get that. But there's a whole other option of just don't fucking do it.
Right. But the problem is we're learning that from addicts.
Addicts, yeah. We're all addicts. It's passed down.
I smoked with my mom. I was 10 years old. She was smoking on the couch right next to me and just passed it to me,
Yeah.
And for me, I never did any of the heavy drugs. I never did fentanyl, meth, coke, any of that stuff because I was scared to death of it. I watched what it did to my brother, my sister, my mom, and it scared the shit out of me. And I literally told myself, this is safe.
Yeah.
This is safe.
That was, see, and that's for the longest time because my dad being a fucking a heavy meth user and never being there because of that. But it's like his addiction was more than that. And I also think that he had like ADHD really bad. My dad, he was actually really fucking smart, but he had these, he had these demons that he had to deal with.
Well, if you look at the symptoms of addiction and ADHD, they're almost indiscernible.
Yeah,
You almost really couldn't, if you had someone tell you their symptoms, you almost couldn't guess if they were an addict or if they had ADD.
yeah. And well, that's the other
They're
fucking
very,
bad thing.
very similar issues. And a lot of times they go hand in hand. You'll
Yeah,
have both.
yeah. And that's what's fucked up is what happens is because the ADHD is like I need this, I need that, you jump. And the problem is I don't have the knowledge to speak on like the actual background of it when it gets into the biology and stuff because it's crazy that the first it was Ritalin, then it became Adderall, and so you're taking an amphetamine, giving it to small children, then you're wondering why they have these like I don't remember the numbers, so I'm not gonna say that, but there was a high number of people that from this certain time frame to this time frame, how many percentage of them went from take ADHD medication to their full blown meth users.
Right.
And what's fucked up is a lot of people. I've in the shit. I've talked to some people that knew my dad. They were heavy meth users. I talked to them, and they said, "Yeah, when I ran out of my ADHD meds, I found meth. And when I found meth, it was like I never want to take Adderall again because it was nowhere near as equivalent. And when I asked them, like, what does it do for you then? And they're like, you know how for everybody else, it like spins them out. They're all like twacked out. They're shaking and doing stuff. They're like, for me, but you know damn good and well what really happens is in time it starts eating your brain and that's what happens. But what they were saying or claiming at least is that it slowed them down.
I used to claim the same thing about pot,
Yeah,
that it would slow my brain down because, the obsessive compulsive thinking is the root of our disease. And I would tell myself that, I was self-medicating to slow myself down. But in actuality, all I was doing was making it worse.
Yeah, yeah.
The pot use really just amplified all of that. It's not kind of it takes whatever you're feeling at that time and it multiplies it.
Yeah, see, that's
You
my
know,
problem is I've never, even when I was younger, it started. So the very first thing I did is I drank, but I didn't like drink. I tried. I was like, I'm gonna get this. I don't like it. Tastes like shit.
I always hated alcohol too. Beer, I was never a beer drinker. You would never see me drinking unless it was liquor.
Yeah,
If I was drinking, it was going to be liquor because I was only drinking for one reason.
yeah,
And it wasn't to be social. It wasn't to get a little buzz. It was to get fucked up.
yeah. See,
You
well, I
know,
went through I went through a transition of like it was just, hey, I'm smoking. I tried drinking. It wasn't that big a deal, but I tried smoking weed. I love smoking weed. So smoking weed. Then I came into like I was about 15, and it's like, oh, the party thing. Everyone wants to drink. So I got into drinking beer. And I got used to it because all my family drinks beer. It's like, okay, whatever. It became because it was a super social thing because we're playing beer pong. And like, it just, I don't know. It gave me, it took me out of my life is shit. Everything is crumbling to, oh, I can fake it with this and whatever. And I wasn't even trying to.
it's a slower process of getting
Yeah.
getting inebriated.
Yeah.
Getting that drunk feeling. You can drink, 4 or 5 beers and be nowhere near where you would be if you had 2 full shots of
And that's the thing is once I started getting, so I've always, because I was huge into smoking weed, like I told myself for the longest time too, like, oh, I'm gonna be one of them old guys that smokes hella weed, like, I'll always be a pothead. I got to a point where I stopped smoking weed, and that's where it got bad because I need to get a job.
still needed something.
But I was always still drinking because I started mixing it too, and the crossfade was what I wanted. So it was never just one. So that shit just multiplied to another level. Then it came into the like, oh, I got to get a job. I can't be smoking weed. So I bounced around for the first, like of my adulthood years. It was like, oh, I can get this job where they're not going to UA me. Or I'm going to get this job and use fake piss or use a Wizinator and all this shit, all these crazy things we would go to get through what we need to. And then it got to the point where it was like, fuck, I need to stop smoking weed, but I got into doing blow and Molly and all this shit. And it was like, oh, I can do this. And if I do get a call back for an interview, if I do it on the weekend, I can tell, oh, I can't do it till next week.
Yep.
Oh, I'm busy till next week. And they can't really deny you. So I do that, get clean, go in, take the test, get, pass. right back into it. And then it got to a point where I was smoking some weed, and I was like, I noticed over time I started doing less and less like pot, and it was becoming more consistently alcohol because that one it's illegal, you know. Then it turned into if I start drinking, then I'm going to want other drugs, and then if I it got to a point where if I took a drink of a beer, at that point it was inevitable I was going to get drugs.
For me, I was so scared to death of it. Even alcohol, I didn't even drink any alcohol until let me see. I met my wife when I was 17, and I was actually drunk when I met her. I was driving drunk. She was on the side of my truck, or it was a Suzuki Samurai,
Hell yeah!
and she was trying to stop us from driving away because we were drunk. And that was like one of the first times I'd ever been drunk because it really did. It scared the shit out of me. I
Yeah.
watched my mom and my brother and sister go through it. But no, it's definitely a vicious cycle where you start to quantify or you start to justify, oh, it's okay,
Yeah.
it's legal. Everyone does this. Oh, it's not fentanyl. Oh, it's not crack.
At least
Oh,
I'm not doing this.
At least I'm not doing this. I have never been arrested. I have never, stolen a car. I have never, been a big thief.
Whatever it is, whatever you need to tell yourself to justify. Yeah, so that's what happened with me when it was like, at least I'm not doing meth. And then it got to a point where I've done meth. Whether it was unintentional, because I've been scammed and did it without knowing what it was, either consumed it because, oh no, it's Molly. I eat it and I'm like, what the fuck am I like, But I didn't know the difference because I never tried Molly before.
Right.
I'd done ecstasy, but it was ecstasy's pressed or it's MDMA pressed with something else. Could be heroin, could be caffeine, could be fucking sassafras.
So if I hadn't met my wife when I was 17 and been with her ever since, I would have gotten into many, many other drugs.
Yeah.
I would have justified it somehow, and I would have been doing all that stuff. Uh, I I kept myself just to pot because I tell myself that I was scared to death of it, but it was really I was scared to death of being alone.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to lose my wife. And then in the end, I did lose my wife. But that's what it took for me to finally open my eyes and get clean, and really
Yeah.
see the damage that I had caused, which I didn't even really understand the damage I had caused until I started doing step work.
Yeah.
Because up until that point, so I used my whole life. I was 47 years old, and finally my wife had enough of it, and she just left me out of the blue. I came downstairs and she was fucking gone with a fucking note sitting on my chair, and I read the note and I spent an hour or so, with a gun in my lap ready to shoot myself. I did not shoot myself, and I literally told myself I've got two choices. I can go drink myself to death or I can change everything. And I decided to change everything. And that led into a journey of recovery, going to treatment, getting out, starting in the fellowship, um, literally pouring my whole addictive personality into my program.
Yeah.
And at first, it was really just about getting my wife back, fixing my life, trying to undo the damage I had done. But through step work and running my program, started to learn more about myself, why I did the things I did. Uh, no excuses, but it helps to know why you do something if you really want to change it for good. I still make a lot of the same mistakes, but I see my mistakes
Sooner
and
understand
I
it.
have a different choice now. React differently. I can change the way I do shit.
Yeah.
The way I treat people, the way I, treat myself.
Yeah. That's what, yeah. And so you said something that I've noticed this as a pattern, and that's part of the reason I want to do this. For the field of schooling that I want to go into, or that I'm into, but the degree I'm trying to get, ultimately the end goal is to become an addiction counselor. But the way that I'm studying it is it's not about, so you have to have, that's the thing. You can have one or two degrees to get it. Psychology or sociology. And the part to me I think is funny is that it doesn't matter which one you get because they're one and the same. But they're not. That's where it's like, what? It's because you have to study both to get that degree. But it just, which way are you going to look at? Are you looking more inward or are you looking more broad? And I want to do more broad because I feel like there's other things that play more into it. I feel like there's more psychologists out there doing this than there is sociologists. And that maybe I could be wrong, but that's just how I feel from what I've seen in my time, and I want to look at it from that perspective. What I noticed from having this podcast, I think we're coming up on like a year, something like that. No, it was a couple months after I got out, so still got a few months. So it's been like 9 months or so, give or take, that I've been doing it. But the fear of losing someone, the fear of abandonment, that tends to be one of the number one things I hear from other people.
Right.
Because for me, when I got into it, it was the fear of like dealing with my emotions because I didn't know how to. There were so many things going on that I did not know how to comprehend it. And then by burying it under the drugs, I never actually handled it. And it caused a lot of shit for a lot of years. And now that I'm in recovery, and now that I'm able to look at some of my behavior and I'm like, fuck. And I really started noticing in the treatment center when they were describing certain situations, and I was like, oh my God, like to a T, like shit. Especially the obsessive compulsive, like when before, dude, like I haven't been in like a lot of relationships. Don't get me wrong, it's not like I can count on my hand. I've had more than that, but it's never been like it's usually not me that breaks it off. I don't know when to let go because I don't want to let go because it goes back to that. It could be all that's where the thing. I see all these red flags and I'm like, nah, because I think it goes back to that mental time, that time in my mental state with my mom and like I have no control. I don't want this to end. What if things could get better? It's that what if. And the more I have dug into it, I've always known it's had to be something like that. But the more I learn about it, the more I'm like, just because you know what it could be doesn't mean you understand it. And that's where I'm getting more in depth on. I'm like, fuck, man.
The control is, a big part of it.
Yeah.
I realized, well, I had a really awesome lady in my recovery that helped me, discover things about myself and why I did some of the things I do. The abuses by my brother and sister, caused me to always seek control. And if I didn't have control, things went horrible. I felt like they were better, but they weren't. They weren't.
But they weren't. Yeah, it's like you would choose. The mind would be more like the way our mind works is I would rather have a shitty situation that I feel like I am in control versus not being in control and being in a healthy situation.
Right.
It's weird that like that's, but
it's like I didn't even know I was having panic attacks my whole life.
Yeah.
I got into treatment and this lady came in. She reminded me so much of my mother, and she was just obsessed with having a goddamn football game on. We were doing, groups and stuff, and it triggered a panic attack, and I didn't even understand what it was. And then when my counselors have helped me understand what it was, she asked me, she's like, okay, so if you were in control of that situation, how would that have went? And because I realized I was doing the same thing with my grandkids and my household, when I was using.
Yeah.
But I had control, quotations,
Yeah.
control, and I told her, I was like, well, I'd be okay, I'd be better. And I was. But as soon as I lost control, I would just fucking lose it and I would shut down.
Yeah.
And then just leave, and that. But without the drugs and without the escape, the fear of the panic attack was just something I'd never experienced.
Yeah, see, and I've been trying to pinpoint. So I've been actually working on one, and I don't. It's one of the ones that's like I don't know how to even describe how I'm trying to work on it because there's absolutely no pattern. That's the fucking problem because you have to figure out what your triggers are, what's causing it. It will just absolutely everything can be going fine. It can be absolutely bad. There's nothing consistent that I can catch of when I go into like sometimes I just become like completely disassociated, like just out of nowhere. I just like everything's pissing me off. I don't want to do anything, and it comes out of nowhere. It could be in the middle of something really good happening, and I'm just like, I'll catch myself like I'm not there anymore. There's times where like I'm getting pissed off, I'm getting pissed off, and I'm ramping up. Those times I can pay attention to. It's when I'm just all of a sudden there that I can't. Well, I shouldn't say I can't, that I haven't been able to yet. And I don't know.
I think a lot of that is still the mental regulation. Recovery is not a straight line.
No.
It's a fucking roller coaster. So you're gonna be up, and then you're gonna be down, and then you're gonna be up, and then you're gonna be down, and everyone's roller coaster is different.
Yeah.
You know, but usually after time, that roller coaster tends to lessen a bit as we learn more about ourselves and why we do things and what is causing us to act certain ways. And just the fact that we know something is wrong is different.
Yeah.
Because before we never even realized anything was wrong.
Yeah.
We would just go use, and then everything was just
nothing mattered. Yeah. See,
Right.
and that's another thing I've noticed too is like, with my cocktail of fucking substances, there wasn't like, like they were saying in treatment, if you're doing cocktails, like good luck trying to figure out a lot of these things because they're so intertwined. It's going to be so hard to pinpoint anything because it's going to be, for one, magnified. Because if let's say you're just high, like stoned, and then you're just drunk. But then if you're high and drunk, there's no way to compare the two, or it's not like what it mixes. No, it magnifies it to another level.
And while we're clean and in recovery, I think the best way to go about finding out the reasons why we're doing the things is to literally take time to either put it on paper or say it out loud
Yeah.
what we're feeling.
Right when we're doing it.
And a lot of times when we realize what we're feeling, we start to get a glimpse of what's behind that feeling.
Yeah.
And
that's been the struggle for me with that.
I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Okay, well, why am I afraid? Oh, I've got these changes going on in my life. Oh, I don't have control of this. Oh, my kids are, doing things that I'm afraid of.
Yeah.
Usually it gets easier because, again, we obsessively, compulsively think about it.
Yeah.
I've got these new changes coming on with a new job and everything, and all these changes and balance. You're going to be chairing my meetings I used to chair. I've got a lot of things that are going to be different, and I've tried not to obsessively compulsively think about it, but that gets really hard.
Fuck yeah, it does.
But what I've been doing is, and it may sound a little childish, weird, but I poured my obsessive compulsive thoughts into a stupid video game that I play.
Yeah.
It's
kind of one of those things going back like the lesser evil.
I'm trying not to obsess about anything, but when I do notice myself getting ramped up about all these changes and the things that I'm gonna have to learn to adapt to, and rebalance my life around, I'll start trying to think about that. It's hard because video games were part of my addiction, part of my problem. I would I would get high and then I would just escape into the game and pretend like the world didn't exist. My wife she'd be telling me things, ask me things, needing things from me, and I'd just ignore her, put on the headphones, and that was a big part of my problem. That and politics.
Yeah, I've seen that one pop up in a few people.
I had a lot of my emotions into politics because it was okay to be angry about politics.
Yeah.
It was okay to be irrational about politics. It was okay to have some of those behaviors. It was socially acceptable.
Yeah, other people are going to get it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. They were going to understand, because some of them felt the same way. So I had to.
And they'll validate you.
I had to cut out a lot of the politics stuff. I don't watch the news. I don't watch, any of the political things. I'm not saying I'm completely blind and I have no idea what's going on, but I don't go out of my way to find any of that stuff. I don't have social media. I'm not even on Facebook. I've never been on Instagram or, X or any of that shit.
Yeah. X is a fucking shit show in the first place, dude. Like, honestly, I got it because I was trying to convince a WWE ring announcer to call a wrestler a soccer mom, and I was convinced I could get it. And then when I got into X and realized it is dog shit. When I got onto Twitter, when it was still Twitter at the time, dude, full blown porn, motherfuckers getting shot in the face. Dude, it was like the Badlands of like old school, like 2004 internet.
Before I got clean, I cut Facebook out of my life for like 6 years. I didn't use any social media.
It's a fucking shit show too.
And then when I got to recovery, and I got out of rehab, I got on Facebook again because I was trying to connect with anyone.
Yeah.
I was so alone. I was in that house and just so fucking alone. I was searching for anything. And I did reconnect with some family members, but I started to notice a very quick trend again, of reposting, resharing, looking for validation from those posts, looking for, did anyone look at it? Did my wife look at it?
Yeah.
Kind of stalking her a little bit on Facebook, letting my mind go rampant. She had changed her settings to where basically I couldn't see what was going on.
Yeah, put the privacy settings on.
Put some privacy settings, and when she did that, it reset her marital status, and that was the end of the fucking world for me. I actually came close to killing myself that night.
Yeah.
After that, because I knew it was the end.
And that's, you start catastrophizing and like, it just, because you're looking for it too.
Oh yeah, no.
You're like, I know this is the end, and when you see it, you're like, I knew it. And
in the first step, we surrendered, and I thought I had surrendered, but I had only surrendered what I was willing to surrender. I didn't surrender to recovery.
Yeah.
I surrendered to not using drugs.
Yeah.
And then slowly not slowly, I did my first 4 steps fairly quick. Well, my first 3, my 4th was a little bit longer. But then the 4th, I had to admit to another human being something I'd never told anyone in my life, and I, in that moment, realized that my whole life had been surrounded around this one event that I had imprisoned myself for. I had blamed myself for. I could never balance the scales for. And through releasing that and letting myself out of my prison, I was able to truly surrender to my recovery and surrender to the fact that I have no control. The fact that, there's a path for me. I just have to be willing to listen, to hear it, And in that, I also was able to truly let go of my wife.
Yeah.
Let her go, told her that I couldn't do it anymore. And even started dating another woman. And in those acts, I got everything back.
Yeah.
By truly surrendering to my God, my higher power, things got better.
Yeah.
But I didn't truly start my recovery, like really, really working my recovery until that 4th step.
Yeah.
Until then, I was just kind of going through the motions.
Yeah, and it's kind of happened to me a couple of times since you kind of explained that to me. So I kind of went into this fellowship completely by accident, which honestly was like the best thing. It was like it was the best thing that happened so far in my recovery was going in, because I was already getting burnt out, but I was lying to myself and like, no, I want to do this, but it was like every day I was just starting to hate it more and more. I came into this fellowship thinking I was in the other one, and then realized, like, wait. And I was like, well, I'm not going to get up and walk out. I got to at least see what this is about, because I've only been to those group meetings in treatment, and those, we'd go weekly to the other one. But they would have to come to the treatment center for this one, and because of the communication between the facility and them, it was real spotty if they show up. The couple times they did, I really connected with them.
I actually remember the look on your face when you realized when you're in NA.
Yeah.
Because I greeted you when you first came in. Newcomers, those are where our lifeblood is. That's where my recovery takes its biggest leaps.
Yeah.
Is through connecting with people.
Yeah. It was you and Tina that were the ones that were just bam there, and I was like, I can't just the way I felt was like I feel like a dick because of how welcoming they were if I just got up and walked out.
Yeah.
Like that was like, I can't do that. That's not, especially since that's not how I was raised. And it's one of those things too when I go back and think about shit like that, like that's not how I was raised. But really how it's really weird thinking about the things that my mom and my grandma were able to instill in me from literally only up until I was about 14. That's really all I really was taught up until 14. After that, dude, it was just surviving. Everything else I learned was even if people were teaching me things, I have family that, I have a cousin that's a brother, and he taught me a lot of shit. But at the same time, there was things that most of it was just survival. Even if I wanted to be learning and listening, I couldn't take things, I was in that fight or flight. And it wasn't until the medicine that really started kicking in, dude, I was still doing it in the treatment center. I could lie to myself real fucking well. You know, and I could tell myself like, no, I really want to do this, like this is for the best, but I'd still be doing the same shit. The willingness was there, but the ability to actually see it for the full thing, I couldn't. And when they got me on the medication, when they diagnosed me with PTSD, because I always knew like PTSD, but I never wanted to talk about it because I honestly felt like a dick if I talked about that I had PTSD. For one, it was never actually truly diagnosed. And for two, when you think of PTSD, most people think about like the military, dude.
War veteran.
Yeah,
People are in such a dangerous situation, like near death situations.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where what the thing is. What was fucked up is I was in that treatment center, and when they said that, and I was in there with a vet, and he was like, "Just because you weren't in war doesn't mean you can't have PTSD." And like I explained to him, like I felt bad, and he's like, "That's horrible." He's like, you had PTSD because of something that put you into fight or flight, and that's what it does. It puts
Right.
you into what the fuck do I do? And it puts a strain on your brain to the point where you're stuck kind of in that. It hinders you, and I until they and even then I was taking the medication they gave me in there. I was taking sertraline, getting out, and it was already helping, but it would kind of like get to a spot and then dull out, and they bump it up, and I get to a spot kind of dull out. And I went to my doctor, and I was following up with her, and she ended up giving me another one. I got put on Wellbutrin, so I'm on sertraline and Wellbutrin, and the combo, dude, like at first it was like really intense, really fucking intense, and then it balanced out. My body kind of got what it was supposed to, and it's helped massively. And the other thing too is I take clonidine when if I know I'm gonna walk into a fucking really stressful situation, or if I have a feeling I might. I'll fucking take one. And it keeps me calm. Like it's just like an extra like chill the fuck out because it's real easy for me to go from here to here over nothing.
Right. Yeah, I don't take any medications. I had a doctor that, so my therapist that I had at the time, she kept saying, talk to your doctor about, antidepressants, and I kept talking to my doctor and he said, I'm not willing to just put you on pills. I don't think you've got a depression issue. I think you've got a situation issue. He could see
That's
the
a good
underlying,
doctor.
he could see the underlying issues that I would have. And it was all about my marriage, my
Yeah.
wife. It was such a traumatic experience, which her leaving me was literally, I would say, the most traumatic incident in my life. Even more traumatic than, my brother's molestation, my sister's, sexual molestation. I don't believe that those affected
Affected
me
me as much, yeah.
the same way. My wife leaving me threw me into a mental breakdown. I had a nervous breakdown. I didn't sleep for fucking months, but those first 4 days, I did not sleep.
And it was all about that really obsessive part.
And it was all about my wife, and the guilt for what I had done. I was starting to understand, some of the things I had done to my kids, the disciplining them in anger, not seeing their feelings as, justifiable. My daughter always talked about her trauma, her trauma. She had such a big trauma. And her trauma was basically me chasing her up to her room, pulling her by her ankles so I could spank her butt because I still believe she deserved to be disciplined, but she shouldn't have been disciplined by me in that moment,
At that
in
moment.
that space. And her main trauma was that. And I looked at her, I was like, you have no idea what trauma is, girl.
Yeah.
But I do understand it now, anxiety. I thought that was just, a weak minded person.
I can be too.
I didn't understand, how powerful it was, but then when I got clean, I had to experience all these things for myself and then reevaluate, what I had done and what I had thought my whole life,
Yeah, and see, and that's like
you
when
know.
they say hurt people, and I've been thinking about that a lot. And like what
Yeah.
you just said, like it plays into it perfect. Like obviously it makes sense when you hear hurt people. They're gonna hurt other people because they don't. But when you break it down even more, is like that when you don't think that that's traumatizing in a comparison to what you went through. that's why it continues, because that ain't trauma.
Right. You have no idea.
Yeah, and that's the same shit as like for me, dude. Like my fucking standard of like my dad was never there, so I want to at least be there for kids. I want them to know that I love them and that I'm even as hard as it's been at certain situations and stuff. The bar was set pretty fucking low. The shit that I've done doesn't mean that I still didn't fucking give them trauma from the shit that's happened, the shit they've seen, the shit they've heard, the fear they've had because of the decisions I make.
You know, and these the kids nowadays, they're going through different
It's a
things.
different world.
You know, and they want to say that they're weak, but their brains were developed in different areas than ours were. You know, we were raised, fucking rub some dirt in it, suck it up. You know,
It's because it was behind, like nobody was there to really judge anything because it wasn't as a big open view.
right.
Now you've got fucking, especially with having phones that have cameras, and social media where anything can all of a sudden do. You can do something completely out of context,
Yeah.
and somebody gets a clip of it, puts it on the internet, boom, it becomes viral in minutes.
Yep.
And now you're ostracized. Literally, dude. I mean, look at some of the people that have been fucking made famous over the dumbest fucking shit. I mean, fucking the Hot Tua girl, and then she goes and makes like this because of a stupid thing she said, drunk for a fucking random interview by some dude, gets a buttload of money, like all these offers, like, hey, you're hot right now, let's put you on this podcast, and she makes this fucking company, and then she pretty much commits like fucking crypto fucking fraud.
Right.
So I think she said something out of pocket too. I think she said something like racist or something like that. I don't quote me on that part. And then
think you're
loses
right,
all of
bro.
it. But it's like, did that person really deserve any fucking fame or anything? Same as some people when they get taken out of context and they get made out to be this horrible person. I mean, fuck, how many people have we been seeing lately that they're getting like released from prison that were imprisoned like unjustly? Dudes that didn't even do it.
Yep.
And they've been in there for like that one dude was in there for like 40 something years. Didn't get anything. They just let him free. What about his whole life? You can't even compensate that. You can't replace time.
It all comes down to money. You know, there is the second largest industry in the world is the prison systems. Prison systems make and generate more money than any other industry on the planet. The only thing that makes more money than the prison industries is all of crime put together. No, it's like a literal fact. All of crime put together is the only thing that makes more money than the prison systems.
Because you got two sides of it. You got the money that's being generated from doing the crimes, and also from the justice system.
No. I'm talking about specifically just the money they make.
Oh yeah.
For the prison systems.
Yeah.
The money that our country pumps in to the prison systems.
Oh yeah.
You know, and the inescapable loop of going through prison, being let out, not being prepared properly, not having devices, not having resources.
There is some fucking crazy.
Going right back into the same shit, and then right back into the
inequality, dude. It's fucking insane. And like at first, a lot of people, and I get this because I was at first, like this, like you get like the white privilege. When you start to actually like, and you step back and you take yourself out of it, and you look at the way the system is built, even after we ended slavery, there were laws that it wasn't until in the '60s that African Americans could vote, and that didn't even talk about women. That was not talking about women. That wasn't until like in this, like '70s, '80s or whatever that they really started getting. Women couldn't even like have their own credit cards. Like the injustices really haven't stopped, and the way the system is built around it, the stereotypes and the stigmas and stuff, that's what the country was built on. But like when
there's still a little bit more behind that though. Like I would really love to know why 13% of the population creates or commits more than 50% of violent crimes.
Oh, that's the areas though is like
there's a lot of things behind all of it.
Yeah, because especially if you look into like the crime thing, if you go in, it's like 3 major cities. That's where most of the crime is.
Right, and then when you look at it numbers wise, there's more money made off of white people in prison because there's more of them. There are a lot of black, Hispanic, Asian, but just because there's just so many more of us white people, right?
And well, the thing is too, it's like I don't understand. It's like in this area, dude, that this is one that really fucking pisses me off. There will be somebody that gets a charge that should be in there for a
Oh yeah,
long fucking time,
we
and
had
then I'll see them out in the fucking street, whether it
we
be
had our
molestation. And these motherfuckers are not even in there for more than a year, and they're back on the fucking street.
and that's because of the money aspect.
Yeah, because
It's
they know
they
they'll
are
fuck
not
up again.
there. They are not there to rehabilitate these people.
No.
They are there to cycle them through so that they can bring them back and make money off of them.
Run through the court system.
Back, they make more money.
Yep.
You know, me and my wife used to watch this show. It was this guy. He would go into prisons all over the world. You know, different countries, and he would go into prisons, and he would actually live in those prisons for a while. And he had been incarcerated in uh, some pretty bad prisons. But some of them that they went into, you could right away tell the difference between someone that or a prison system that was literally trying to rehabilitate these people,
Or they
and
just
or that were just cycling them through or holding them until they die.
yeah, and that's how
You
some
know,
of them are. Like, and it's fucking crazy because, and I've always wondered this. Then learning this kind of stuff is like, once I got older, I started realizing like, how the fuck you have all these drug lords in prisons and they're still like they're making money in prison? My thing is like, how does this guy make these calls if he's locked up? You know what I mean? I never could wrap my head around that because
they've got phones, you know, and it's
yeah, well, it's like what is he gonna do to stop me? But he's already got money. Like he's
the
got
biggest
people paid
problem
off.
with our prison systems is the people
Yeah.
that run it. So like most of the people that are running the prisons, they should be in the prison themselves.
Dude,
And most of them are smuggling in things,
working with them.
working with them. Because it's all about money.
Yeah, we'll have a couple family members that work for the prison, and they like they said, one of the hardest things about the job is the fact that you're in the cage too.
Yeah.
And it starts to change your if you like it or not. Like
Your behavior,
you become a prisoner too. And you might be on the outside of the cage, but everybody has to follow these certain types of rules. And it's fucking wild when you start. Okay, a good thing. I just talked about this in my last podcast about the fucking Epstein files going into the prison system, tying these two together. How the fuck do they have these videos? Oh look, we don't have anything for that area, but then there's another camera angle of part of that area, but we blocked that. It's just bullshit. The people in there fucking.
Oh yeah.
It's clear as day. And that's the part where it's like these things happen. A lot of this shit too with the Epstein files supposedly, okay, not supposedly. There's all these people that are on there. No one's being fucking held accountable. Britain did something before we did. They held fucking Prince fucking Andrew, whatever the fuck his name is, well, before we did anything. But now this Ukrainian war, or not Ukraine, excuse me, Iran and Israel war, dude, they're backburnered. Just this thing about fucking the Congress passing this thing where supposedly they've taken a shit ton of like millions of taxpayers' money to cover up like sex scandals. And they had a chance to vote on if it should stay sealed or be made public. 127 of them voted for keep it sealed.
Yeah, I wonder why.
What the fuck kind of system is that?
Dude, our whole system
is dog shit.
Congress, the House and the Senate, all those positions, when they were originally created, they were originally created with term limits.
Yeah.
And it said in our Constitution they had term limits to avoid corruption. But then those same people, I'll remember when it was, and as long as we have that, we're going to have corruption.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. Until we can force term limits in every seat, this kind of stuff will continue to happen.
Dude, the one I'll never understand is the Supreme Court. I will never understand that one.
That,
you got these motherfuckers out there that can barely breathe.
It depends on who appoints them as to what kind of ways they're going to vote.
Yeah.
Right? So, like when the Republicans are in power, they will appoint Republican sympathizers. Same thing with Democrats. It's whoever's in power at the time is whoever controls the Supreme Court votes. right? Because ultimately that's where it gets sent.
Yeah.
So
The whole thing just to me, it blows me away because that's part of the reason why, like, that is part of why I want to study sociology, because I know it for a fucking fact that I viewed my life at the time, like, could create like the scenario for you, paint the picture. So I'm fucking 16, my mom's gone, I've been on house arrest for fucking taking my grandma's car. I get off house arrest, and it's like I'm already in the system. The government don't give two fucks about me. There's no one above me that's gonna hold me accountable. Like, there's no parent. Essentially, I'm emancipated, and pretty much, dude, is like that's where a lot of these decisions is like, fuck it, I'm already fucked. Why not?
right.
And that's part of why I want to look into this, because that's where a lot of people's like, instead of being like, I can make this difference, when you don't have hope, hope is a powerful fucking thing. And as soon as that shit is corrupted, people could change. Especially like when
We've
you
got
see us.
people that think that they can do whatever they want because then the entitlement, that's where entitlement comes from.
Yeah.
It's from lack of hope.
Yeah.
You know, they they think they can do anything they want because they see people in power doing whatever the fuck they want. You know, like Black Lives Matter, right? It's supposed to be a really good cause,
Yeah.
right? A really good thoughts behind it. But there's so much corruption and
Yeah.
so much embezzling
Because
and
there's
so
always what I think is
the
too is no
best
matter,
things we have always get corrupted
because it doesn't
because
take but one
someone's
person.
looking to make some fucking
Yeah.
money.
Yeah, it could be a great fucking thing, right? It doesn't, like you said, BLM could be great.
It
Even
could.
like feminism, like the feminist movement. Is it a good thing? Yes. What the fucking actual cause is
What they
for?
did with it,
Yeah, because it takes a couple of people that fuck shit up to divert it from what it really meant. Politics. What is it? It was created to hold each other accountable, to make a system that works so we all had a voice. And then it takes a couple motherfuckers to look deeper and be able to twist and,
just like when
yeah.
when they were suing Trump, bringing him to court. People are like, oh well, what's the big problem? Well, the way they did it was completely corrupt.
Yeah. I'm
They
not saying that
appointed
he doesn't deserve to go to prison, but you got to do it in the right
they
process.
appointed their own people, that had bias before they even got into
Yeah.
the process. They just it was a freaking witch hunt.
Yeah.
When you go and you tell a jury, that you don't have to agree on what the crime is, but do you think Trump created or committed any crime? No, you're there for a specific crime, not freaking anything you want.
It has to be for that, yeah. And that's
It was stupid, and we still have not seen any arrests or any justice in that. People doing things absolutely illegal just to try and stop Trump. Do I like Trump? He's a fucking asshole. I don't like Trump, but
it's not
he has
talking
done.
about the person himself. It's how it's being done. That's how it's supposed to be in this fucking country. Oh, it's the same
Well,
fucking shit.
I do agree with Trump on a lot of the stuff he's done. A lot of stuff he's done, we need it. We need to
Well,
change
one of
the
the
way we
ones,
do things. The biggest thing he said in his first term was he wanted to change the status quo.
yeah.
He wasn't going to be manipulated by corruption.
Well, one of the
So
things he's doing right now, I think I saw the Super Bowl and I was like, what the fuck? Started looking into it. Fuck, now I'm not gonna remember what it's called. Pretty much every kid, if the parent signs them up, if they're under a year, they get $1,000. It goes in and it gets invested. So by the time the kid hits 18, they have money.
Trump wants to invest in a future
Yeah.
for America.
Yeah.
And people don't they don't want that. It's the same thing with like the Ukraine war. That was not to free Ukraine. That was to embezzle billions of dollars. They sent money to Ukraine, our money, our tax-paying dollars, to Ukraine so that Ukraine could turn around and spend that money with U.S. contractors to buy weapons. It was all just an embezzling. It was them sending money to them so they could send it back and spend it with the people that really wanted the money.
The Venezuela thing.
This is a lot of the stuff that this I have had to just let go.
Yeah.
I am not completely up to date on a lot of the stuff because it does get me worked up and it gets me angry.
Yeah.
You know, and I am not a complete diehard conservative. I do have a few liberal views, but the majority of my views are conservative because the root behind conservative views is work hard, you know, earn what you get. You know, you're not going to be given things. You know, those are at the root of being a conservative.
Well, the
But then
biggest
other
part of it
people
though is
just
to
think it's
it's
just fun.
conserves, keep what we already have, and a liberal, that's what it's supposed to be, and it's
Right.
not, because conservative is supposed to be, we already have this, I'm going to keep it as close to this as what we had. The liberal is supposed to be, we're going to change everything and build it forward, but there's no consistency. From what either side is supposed to be, there is absolutely no consistency.
That's not.
And that's one of the things is, so you got people that are mad on one side about when we came in and we took the president of Venezuela, right? But then you see the people there are like, fuck yeah. So what about when we went in? What about Gaddafi? We handed his ass out to the street and they fucking raped him to death with swords. Everybody gave a fuck about that then. He deserved it. This motherfucker didn't get killed. We took him in, we held him accountable.
It all depends on the political temperature at the time.
Yeah.
You know, if it were the Democrats that would have done that, it would have been like, hey, we stopped a tyrant. You
Yeah.
know, but and there still is something behind that whole Venezuela thing. He didn't do that to save Venezuela.
Fuck no.
He
wants the resources.
There's some other reason behind that.
He wants the resources.
Which will be fully, you know, realized.
They have the most crude oil in the world. He wants that oil. But it's all tactical advantage. The same thing with the Greenland thing. But all of it, like all of that right there. It's the same shit of a lot of this, like with how it's just so overwhelming. That's how I feel like all it takes in a person's life is to have some things go bad. The world looks like shit. It oppresses you, and that's where a lot. Look at 2020. How many fucking people OD'd, fucking drank themselves to death, got DUIs? That shit skyrocketed.
My mental health plummeted during that time.
Yeah.
My wife, she was working for an ophthalmologist, and he decided to basically let everyone go, you know, because he could. People that he had working for him were making, in his eyes, too much money. And when
it was a way to wipe the
when he reopened, he started off with all new people that he paid less.
Yeah, starting wages.
But anyway, so my wife she was at home and she was being paid more to be at home than she was making when she was at work.
Yeah.
You know, and my mental health got bad because I let jealousies and jealousies turn into resentments, and then resentments, you know, become, you know, just anger.
Yeah.
You know, and I watched my wife, you know, doing things that was kind of like when we kind of split in the way we thought. You know, we didn't think the same way.
We're on the same page.
We were nowhere near the same page, and my political views got more extreme, and she was going more liberal and I was going more conservative. And it was back in the day, you know, I could explain the way I felt about something, the way I thought, what I thought was right, and she would look at it and go, you know, yeah, you know, that's. She would at least listen to it, you know. And then after the whole COVID thing, she just stopped listening.
See, and that's what I think. You know, that right there is the ploy. I think that is the ploy, because that's what I think. And I don't give a fuck. I know it's a conspiracy, but I'm convinced this is what's happening. Before it was keep them oppressed by the race war. Now it's fucking turn red versus blue, dude. Because in reality, what it should be, it's the fucking normal fucking person versus the elite fucking rich.
Right.
Because they're the ones pulling the strings. They're the ones that made trillions of dollars during COVID, when everybody was like going to the point of like they had nothing, barely trying to survive. CEOs made 1,200% their annual fucking. Fuck that, dude. It's the rich and the poor in my eyes.
It's still a lot of racism, race baiting.
Yeah.
You know,
they bait that shit.
It's just one of the many tools that they use.
Yeah, and then and then you can throw in, now that things are becoming more like acceptable, you know, like, hey, if somebody's gay, they're gay. So what? Okay? But now they can start throwing that out there. And I think that's why they promote these like extremist views. Most people aren't extremists. Most people are more towards the middle than we would like to admit. Like, yeah, somebody might be more on the conservative side, they might be more on the liberal side, but they're more towards the middle than these fucking extremists.
The extremists are the ones that can't sit down and have a conversation.
Yeah.
The people that are,
And usually they're the ones that are making money off of
people like you and me, we can sit down and have conflicting views and have a conversation about it without being ready to kill each other.
Because just, I mean, it doesn't like, is that gonna?
But social media amplifies all of that. It takes normal people with normal, run of the mill views and turns them into these extremists.
Yeah.
And most of it is just an act because they need or want the attention.
Yeah, and that's the same thing I also feel like what happens with recovery. I feel like that's what also happens with recovery. When people are trying and then all their friends are out partying and they see these pictures, it amplifies that, what is it, the fear of missing out, the FOMO? Yeah.
He was still doing it, and fresh off of a relapse. That was scary to hear.
Yeah.
And that's why he didn't tell anyone until he got back.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, dude, because I had somebody hit me up. For years, we played this game together. Like, we've literally known each other for like a decade now. And there's three of us that always talked about going to meet them in Vegas, right? And they brought that up just like 2-3 days ago. And I was like, it would be cool, but I'm not ready for that. But that's why I respect those guys, because when I told them straight up, like, hey, I'm not going to be on here. You're not going to hear from me. This is what's happening. And like, they've become really close friends. Right. And it's one of the weird things about like, dude, you can have people on the other side of the fucking planet that care about you more than the fucking people in your fucking family or the people even in your own household sometimes. Yep. It's crazy, dude, because sometimes we surround ourselves with things we don't need to have around us. And that's where we're having to cut off certain things so I'm not surrounded by it.
I have a guy in my phone right now that his name is Sergeant Fury. He's a guy I met gaming.
Yeah.
And when all this shit went down, he was one of the few people that I could talk to.
Yeah, because you don't feel like
I've never even met this person in person. I've seen pictures.
Yeah.
But it's I've never met him, and he is my brother.
Yeah.
I love him to death. He loves me. I know that just from the way he cares and asks.
Yeah, I've got friends. I've got friends all over. Like, I would love to go and travel to see them, but goddamn, I got a friend in Chicago. I got a friend up in Toronto. I got another friend that lives in Ireland, one that's in Scotland, one that's in Wales, and one that's in London. And like, we fucking talk all the time. And like, I love that we can flip each other shit, because even when it comes into politics and shit, they'll flip me shit, because like, I've asked them, like, how is it portrayed for what's happening here over there? And they pretty much are like, you guys are like the reality TV show. And everybody's scared of you because you guys are so erratic. When you do something, it affects the world. And it's true. Like, we get a fuck out of nowhere. Nobody saw that coming. It was like, what, 20 minutes? And we fucking went to Venezuela, took their fucking president and dipped. Fucked him up.
And right now, we're fucking with Iran.
This one. We sank the first ship with a torpedo since World War II.
Yeah.
What the fuck, dude? Like, I don't know. The world, like, and that's a shit to where the way I look at it, dude, like, a lot of people are, oh, but it does affect you because that's what's happening. Can I fucking change it? Nope. That's it. Turn it over to the higher power. That is out of my fucking ability.
And that is the biggest lie that most of the extremists tell themselves is, I'm making a difference. No, you're not. You're just making it worse.
The only people that matter are the elites up top making that choice. And that's, because
again, until we can change term limits, we're never going to see any change in any of that.
No.
Our president is damn near just, a figurehead.
He's a fucking scapegoat. He's always been. And they made that very blatant for a long time.
More evident when Biden was in office than ever. He actually brought up some sort of a lawsuit a while back ago because decisions were being made that he never even knew about. We all knew that Biden wasn't in charge. We all knew Biden wasn't making these decisions. Yeah. We all knew Biden was, just sitting in his chair, pooping his pants.
You know, one of my favorite things I heard while he was a president? At the White House, they found a bag of drugs, and they couldn't figure out whose it was.
Everyone knew it was his son.
Yeah, I think it was Mike Epps, who was the comedian. And instead, he's like, go to Hunter's room. You know it's Hunter. But dude, like, to me, what really made like almost all of politics is like, this is just for show.
Oh yeah.
When you got the governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, Ronald Reagan, who was a fucking movie star, and now the bro. And then people try to act like that's different from Trump. It's a fucking it's a celebrity. You know who it is. Slap him on there. How the fuck does that not make it? It's no different.
The biggest difference between that and Trump is at his root a businessman.
Yeah, and he's been very straightforward about that.
He wants to make America strong again because we've become weak.
Well, his whole thing is he wants to fucking generate money and make sure that we actually can like suffice with.
If I had it my way, we wouldn't have ended up with Trump. We would have ended up with Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek Ramaswamy, he's younger. He has views similar to Trump, but it's all about just like Trump wanting to strengthen the U.S. He wants to get us off of this dependency for Taiwan for the superconductors. But in order to do that, we're going to need 10 years to catch up.
See, that's the problem with everything.
But we're never going to catch up if we don't start.
Yeah, we're bottlenecked into like our ties with who's giving us what product. We don't make our own shit anymore.
And we got our eyes opened up about a lot of that when COVID did hit. What was it, like 80% of our medical supplies come from China.
China and India. Like there's some that come from India. I know that. Like that was I didn't know that.
It's ridiculous.
And that's also another thing.
For that.
There's another thing for me.
How is it cheaper to have something made in China and shipped halfway around the world to us? How is it cheaper to do that than it is to make it here?
Yeah.
I've never completely.
Okay, so you know how like a factory works, right? You know, like how you got like this guy makes this part, this guy makes this part, this guy makes this part, this guy assembles it. Okay, you all have a component. If one of you's not there, that shit don't work. That's what's happened with countries, and it should not fucking be that way. That each country should be pretty self-sufficient. I mean, yeah, you can have like some import export. You're gonna need that. But when you become dependent, that's when the codependency shit comes in, and you can't do things.
Tucker Carlson, he went to Russia, right?
Oh yeah, I heard about him going there.
So he goes to Russia, everyone flips the fuck out, and mainly because of what he showed. Everyone thinks of Russia as this horrible, depressed, dirty,
like
just
falling apart,
just riddled with.
And it's not like that at all.
He goes there, and he goes to a grocery store, and the shelves are full. But so we have put embargoes or whatever. They cannot get goods from a lot of different countries. It's just they're not allowed to. So what that has done is that has forced Russia to create their own stuff.
Yeah.
So everything on the shelves at their grocery stores, it's made in Russia.
Grown in Russia, manufactured in Russia, produced in Russia.
Russian, right? And what we have done by doing this to them is we have made Russia stronger.
Yeah, oppression usually, know.
So I mean these tariffs and stuff, that we have. I'm pro tariffs. Why can we send stuff to other countries and they tariff our stuff, but we can't tariff the stuff that they're sending to us? That just makes no sense.
So the one about that though, I did not understand why the fuck did he
build our own stuff in this country if we can get it from China cheaper?
Why did he tariff an island that only has penguins?
Right.
That one on my but there's strategic fucking reasons why all these stupid things, because it doesn't make sense to us, but because maybe what we know isn't the full story.
Right.
And that's really what it comes, and I think that's for like for the podcast. I mean, I guess to like really bring it back to like kind of make it full circle. All those kind of things, everything we talked about all plays into how easy it is for, like I said earlier, you get overwhelmed, for us to become obsessive and compulsive about something. Yes, because we're being distracted.
Right.
And I think that people that have an addiction issue, a lot of times, is because we're searching for a specific, you know what I mean? Like we notice something in our life that is not stable. And when it is exploited and produced on major levels of like, you'll never get that stability. It fucking terrifies people. And then you fall into things like substance abuse,
For me, a lot of it was just literally most of my problems out of my life. It can all be related to fear and laziness. So I never once took a risk.
Yeah.
I would always take the easy way out, right?
Yeah.
I would always take the lazy way out. If I get to have someone else do it and me not have to do it, fuck it, great.
Yeah.
So now, in recovery, we have to continually challenge ourselves. So like when I had this job put in my face, it was a risk. It is a risk,
Yeah.
and I can fall flat on my face.
Yeah.
But I cannot shy away from the risk anymore
Because you have
because
hope. You have a hope and belief in yourself that I have to see, you know, I trust myself at least to see what's going to happen. It's those
and
things you're gaining back.
it's not even a trust in myself. I still have no trust in myself. I do have, right? There's a certain amount, but
There's more than it
ultimately,
was.
I do not trust myself.
Right. Because of the things.
But I do have a trust in my path and my higher power.
Right.
And that's something I never had in active addiction. I was a self-proclaimed atheist my whole life. I
Yeah.
never believed in anything other than myself. I believed in karma. I believed in a giant scale that I could never balance,
Yeah.
and then through recovery and truly surrendering in my fourth and seeing everything that happened in my recovery, I came to understand that, it's not always going to be okay, but it's going to be okay.
It's going to be okay. Yeah.
I may not have the things that I want, but I will ultimately get the things that I need. So this risk that I'm taking, I can take it knowing that even if it doesn't work out, it's going to be okay. My God provides for me.
Yeah.
He gives me everything I need.
Yeah.
I may not have the 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 new cars I've got, the house, this. I may not have that shit forever.
Yeah.
But I will ultimately have what I need.
Yeah. You're always going to
And
have what
maybe
you
what
need.
I need is just a bicycle, or a minimum wage job. Or,
Yeah. That's honestly, you saying that like hits it right home for me because it was always like I had to have this next thing. I had to have the next thing. I had to be better. I had to be better. I had to be better. And then when I went to treatment and realized you're going to keep chasing these things and you're going to keep getting the exact same outcome because it's not what you're getting, it's how you're living your life. And now, even like, dude, it's somewhat scary paying the bills and shit right now. But I'm way more fucking happy and content with my life because I'm doing something I always wanted to do. I'm taking that risk on myself, but it's something I want to do, so I care about it. At the end goal, it is going to provide for me.
Right.
And it just all the way around, like quality of life is better. And that's what they gave me. They told me in treatment center, do you want a little bit more money or do you want a little bit less pay for a better quality of life? And that it just, I don't know why it took me so long to grasp that.
I was working a job in caregiving when I got out of recovery, a job that I worked for 13 years before that.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of caregiving for this company, and it was just a horrible job, and I was struggling with some things that I was seeing, basically physical abuse of clients and stuff. I just had no idea what to do. And me and my sponsor we sat down, and he helped me to come to the conclusion that we were going to pray on it until an answer was provided. And eventually, I found another job and that answer was provided. It's time to do something about these abuses. And I did take care of those abuses. I turned them in. My conscience, felt better. Ultimately, God did provide for me the answer. This job here, I was not looking for a job. God put this in front of me. And I made a decision a while ago that, it doesn't matter what God puts in front of you. So when I did my 4-step, I released myself from my prison. I let go of my wife. At that point, I made a decision to start exploring anything God puts in front of me.
Yeah.
Now, that's not just the good things.
Yep.
I explore the bad things. I explore the hurt. I explore the pain. Explore all of it because ultimately they're all a gift.
Yeah, you have to feel those things to be able to act. It's like one of those things. You're never going to appreciate the sunshine if you never, feel the rain.
And I found that living my life this way of just allowing God to provide and then exploring whatever He puts in front of me, it's so much easier.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about, the decision's already made for me.
Yeah. It's everything, honestly, like you're saying, everything that I've been in recovery. Honestly, kind of pisses me off, I'm not gonna lie, but it's like all those things that people tell you, like I was saying earlier. Like when you're doing the right things, everything falls into place.
Yeah.
When you're not doing the right things, it's really hard to fucking believe that.
And, I've got a saying, you've heard me say it many times, when you take care of your recovery, everything else falls into place.
Yeah.
Because if you are doing the right things, the next right thing, how could things not be better?
Yeah.
I'm not saying you're going to have everything you want,
But
but you're going to have everything you need.
well, dude, with that, I think we're on a good spot. I really appreciate you coming over, man. I talked about before. I want to do. I've been talking about this, been leading up to this for a while. I want to do an episode with you. I want to do another episode where I have your sponsor come on, and I'd love to run this back again too at some point.
I would like that.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed this, man. Like I said, I really appreciate you coming over, making the time to do this. No, it was actually really cool to get down and do this, man.
Heck yeah, I appreciate it.
All right, brother.